Welcome to my humble abode. I'm Yorkie the Talespinner, and this is our morning show, Tales Over Coffee, where we start the day together with a narrative tale and a cup of coffee, in the hopes of welcoming a blessed day. This is Suzerain, continuing the tale of Anton Rain's presidency of Sordland. Let us return now to the mess that's been brewing. Trials of democracy. Five news reports. Sordland today. Police have arrested the principal of a high school in Nabel, in southern Bergia, where 12 students died after eating a free meal laced with pesticide. The students aged between 15 and 17 died after eating a lunch of local dish sabla, cooked at the school in a poverty-stricken city. Police have started the investigation to solve the mystery of how the pesticide ended up in the food. Time for women to stand up. Women of Sordland have always been under pressure by the unequal society and the system of discrimination that was built by old men who only knew about war, said Katrina Horton in a women's rally that was held in Hallsaw today. The Scottish League of Women is organising a number of rallies across Sordland to bring the change Sordland desperately needs. It is time for Sordland to realise that we have to respect every individual regardless of their sex and strive to become an advanced civilization. Women have long been pushed to the corners of the social and political life. To address this change, a new campaign was started all over Sordland to establish a framework for women's rights. The Scottish League of Women is organising rallies with the support of Minister of Education Tiara Walder and Member of Assembly Katarina Horton. Everybody is equal according to the Scottish Constitution, but there are no protections against discrimination, which only reinforces the inequality in practice, said Walder in a press conference. This movement must be supported by all Scottish women as well as men. We need to bring change now. You wish to go behind, Chicky? Questioning Solist Education, the newly unveiled SIPA Education Performance Report unveiled a sad reality about Sordland's abysmal status. In comparison to many countries, Sordland was rated 39th out of the 68 nations that were assessed by the OMEC organization. The primary gauge of the quality of education is made from a sample of 16-year-olds from each nation, and their capacity in fields like mathematics, history, chemistry, and many others. One of the key issues was seen as the strong focus on history and citizenship classes, leaving little time for scientific fields. Minister Walder often mentioned the gaps in the system in her assembly debates before she joined the cabinet. This is also supported by one of our editors, a professor of Hallsaw State, who had long been critical of the situation in secondary education. The SIPA report reveals a damning truth, that solist education based on principles of statism, nationalism, republicanism poisons the bright minds of our children. We need to rid the system of the poison that is ideological indoctrination and let our future generations think for themselves. Upcoming budget changes. As the top economy experts in the country, we have been watching the upcoming changes to the government budget very closely. President Anton Rain's first internal economical challenge lies ahead, and we will see if he can prove his capabilities as a leader who can think ahead. The potential ramifications of diverting the funding to certain government branches has always been a point of contention for any leader, and it is no different in this case. We will see if President Rain can hold on to promises he has given. Geopolitical. Van Horten blames Valsland for the missing fishing vessel. On Tuesday morning, Agnolia's Prime Minister Van Horten has made a statement denouncing Valsland for the missing vessel, hull number ARV 0238. Our dutiful coast guards have rescued a number of members of the missing vessel. Crew members. Through his statements, we have learned the ship's unfortunate end was none other than Valslandian Navy. However, the Prime Minister has refused to disclose the surviving crew member due to the fear of an assassination attempt from Vargsland to cover up their hostility, as the Minister later claimed. That doesn't sound good. Definitely doesn't sound good. Report from Boring. Communist books burned in Boring. Local residents gathered thousands of books that they claimed to be spreading communism and millennialist propaganda at the Century Park in Boring and set the books on fire. Aggressive slogans targeting the Red Youth, the Workers' Party of Bloodia, the Communist Party of Sordland were shouted. Youth groups from the local party officers of the USP and NFP also joined in with the burning. The fire departments were dispatched and protesters dispersed on their own. Bloodish resistance in sanctuaries. Security units have arrested 3 priests who were at 2 different Yorkie sanctuaries. At 2 different Yorkie sanctuaries in Sana, after finding links to insurgent activities. The report came from an elderly man who wanted to pray in peace. Instead, found himself invited to join Bloodish Freedom Front by a state-sanctioned priest. Further incidents indicate that BFF is pushing for a local recruitment drive in different sanctuaries across the region. Oh, it's a religious sanctuary, okay. Read the report of Blackhaven. Recession hits farmers again. As per the latest news from Blackhaven, the farming industry has taken another hit as a result of a recession. The reports are that 16% of all wheat in Blackhaven is rotting in barns due to lack of buyers. Then we need the road, don't we? Farmers are requesting additional funds from the government to survive the year. Nabel reports lack of hospitals. The mayor of Nabel has reported that their hospitals are overburdened and they are unable to respond to the needs of the citizens. He complained about months-long waiting lists, terminally ill patients. On top of the capacity issues, it was noted that the facilities are still largely using outdated technology. Not having hospitals is not a good thing. Young Swords and NFP flags burned. A massive counter-protest against Young Swords led by a local politician known to be aligned with the Red Youth resulted in many injuries and property damage. Subsequently, Young Swords and National Front Party flags were burnt, which caused tensions to escalate. Local police dispersed the protesters by sundown. Things definitely are not peaceful. Barbecue with Frank. Resident of the President of Sordland, also. It was Saturday afternoon, my first break from work, in what felt like years, and the weather couldn't have been more perfect. Trying to keep my mind off the upheaval sparked by the circus assassination, I lit the backyard grill. Monica and Deanna were out shopping for craft supplies, and I'd given the staff the day off. It was just myself and Frank at home. I wasn't sure how he felt about me at the moment, but I did know how he felt about barbecued ribs. The great unifier. Our cook had left some marinating in the refrigerator. Sure enough, soon as Frank glimpsed the grill and the meat, he stepped outside to join me. Come to spend some quality time with your old man, have you? Sure, if you can spare a few minutes out of your busy schedule. Fair comment, but lacking an adult's understanding. I'm sorry, I know I haven't been around very often lately, but I'm happy to see you now. It's okay, I know you've got the most stressful job in the country, and you've got to feed your family on top of it all. We both chuckled. I tend to light the fire. I turned to tend to the fire. Here, let me, said Frank. He grabbed the fan and started quickly waving it over the coals. The fire roared to life. He turned to look at me with a grin on his face as if he was expecting praise. Good job, son. Thank you, sir. It is our utmost interest to fulfill our duties with precision. You sarcastic little oik. The grilling shall commence in exactly 1 minute and 32 seconds. That was a spot-on impersonation of Lucian. We looked at each other for a second, then burst out laughing. I realised my throat was parched. There was a 6-pack of beer in the fridge. Try a coffee. Why don't you get us a couple of beers? He looked at me in disbelief. You mean I can... But Mum told me... He stopped himself, quickly ran inside, returned with 2 beers. He cracked them open, clinked the bottles, and gazed out at the city skyline. For a moment my thoughts flashed back to my childhood and my relationship with my own father. My father was a poor man who struggled to provide for us on his meagre income. He put me in to work on the farm long before I was Frank's age. By the way, I don't think 1 beer now and then is going to harm anyone. If it's a habit, yes it will. And then, we couldn't always make ends meet. If I say anyone, I wouldn't advise giving any beer to a baby. Obviously. Yet we were always close as a family. Now that was the present. I knew Frank would never face the same hardships I had. I couldn't deny that I felt a bit jealous. Dad, can I ask you something? For family, you can ask me anything. It's just, I feel like there's so much you've been hiding from me. About your past and about what's going on right now. Like at dinner that night after the ball, you told me everything was under control, but it wasn't, was it? I know what's happened in the 20s. We learned about it in school. Now with the protests and the riots, is it going to be the same thing? Dad, is there going to be a civil war in Sordland? I hope not. Let out a sigh. But what was it like back then? Uncle Peter said the 2 of you went through a lot. I'm not a kid anymore, you can tell me. Before I could gather my thoughts, the familiar images started flashing before my eyes. Images of soldiers advancing towards me and my friends, weapons drawn, of people I knew, friends and neighbours, being dragged through the streets and murdered in alleyways, and that little girl's face. Those were dark times, son. Seems like it. But you're nearly a grown man. Let's talk about it. Sometimes we have to face the hardships of life, and with support we can face them younger than people believe. Honestly, children often are facing them without support. Frank leaned forward in his chair, his eyes wide. Tell him about the coup of 1927. I was barely older than you are now. Studying law at Hull State University, I was a freshman, excited and young. I'd just left the classroom. Go back home as I heard the sound of multiple vehicles approaching the campus gates. As they got closer, I realized they were military camouflage trucks and tanks, carrying hundreds of soldiers. The same soldiers that were supposed to protect Sordland citizens pointed their guns at us. They immediately took control of the facilities. One of my friends asked what was going on and was arrested immediately. More people got angry and gathered in protest. Frank kept listening, a shocked look on his face. Seeing that crowd gathering, I knew something was going to happen. Something bad. I'm not going to hide the truth. I decided that it was impossible to go against armed men and ran away from the scene. Ran away from my friends who were getting arrested and shot to save my own dear life like a coward. Still feel my flight was shameful. I should have stood my ground. No one could sleep that night because of gunshots and sounds of boots. I cannot forget the screams to this day. Frank leaned back in his chair, his shoulders slumped heavily. Talking about the Civil War. It was right after I met your mother. We had both joined the same political debate group, Push for the Change, after the coup of 27. Eventually, I became convinced I wasn't doing enough, so I joined the Young Swords. Then one night it happened, 2 different factions in the army, one of them led by fascist General Ludrin and the other by socialist General Ricard, started fighting against each other. It was a bloodbath. Nowhere was safe. Frank shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. So we organised a protest one day, against Ricard. We were fed up with the army toying with the country again. I paused for a moment before continuing. It was horrible. They were waiting for us. Soldiers started beating and shooting at everyone and ploughing their tanks into the crowd. Amid the chaos, there was this girl. I never forgot her face. I tried to save her, but I couldn't reach her in time. Frank's face had grown pale. He turned his eyes away from me. Enough for today. Okay, sorry, I shouldn't have asked about it. I know I don't understand how easy my life is sometimes. One more thing, though. I know you joined the Young Swords back then. Do you mind if I ask why? Sordland was under attack by communists and I had to defend the country. Frank raised his eyebrows, curiosity still not satisfied, but sensing my reluctance to go on, he simply nodded. Sorry for bombarding you with questions. I know I complain sometimes, but my problems are nothing compared to what you went through. I'm here to listen to them, whatever they are. You can't compare one person's problems to another like that. What's bad for you may seem less than what I go through, or vice versa. But it's still bad for you. Bad for me is bad for me. Likewise with what's good. The whole "there are people worse off than you" is one of the most stupid things I've ever heard. First, as I said, you really can't compare to that level. Second, am I meant to feel glad that there are people worse off than me? Or am I likely to feel worse that however bad I've got it, there are people who are even worse off? I'd rather they were better off, honestly. Before Frank could say anything else, I heard the front door unlock. Diana and Monica's voices and the sounds of rustling shopping bags filled the house. Alright, I'll be upstairs until dinner. Frank went in and dashed upstairs. I took a long sip from my beer, looking at the city and the now setting sun. I hoped that talking to Frank about my past had been the right decision. Part of me felt as if some part of the burden had been lifted. It's not that, it's more enlightening him. But I had the same nightmares that night. Attacker opened fire on protesters, 17 dead. A man opened fire in Vesor City yesterday during a protest march against the Communist Party of Sordland, against the murder of Bernard Circus. The attacker used a military-grade machine gun dated 1929, which is suspected to be part of the infantry of the Swedish Armed Forces. The attacker killed himself after shooting 25 people, killing 16. He took out the weapon from the newsstand at the square, brandished it, and yelled, "Come, I will give you freedom." One witness said the highly charged word freedom was previously associated with bloody separatists. It has been used widely since the previous month of protests against the murder of Bernard Circus. Minister of the Interior Lilias Grass said she spoken to the Chief of Vesod Police and asked him to take strict action. The government will not tolerate any such incident and the perpetrators will not be spared, indeed. Gelsord FC and Rica FC derby postponed due to protests. One of the most anticipated matches between Gelsord and Rica was postponed because of the intense protests in the city of Anrica. The league has issued the following statement regarding the situation. Due to safety reasons, the players are compromised during this time of trouble. We have decided to postpone the game. Moreover, we are standing in solidarity with our fans, our players, and the people of Anrica in the fight against injustice. Mayor Curtin Lest has also made a statement. It is a tragic day for Sordland, where the president himself refused to act in the face of communism. It is said that inaction breeds doubt and fear. Thus I fear that the spread of communism has sown deeper inside the heart of the nation. We thought. On democratic elections of Sordland. See, the choices I had to make, it was that the nation was under attack, not necessarily by communism. There are extremists on all sides. Sordland had an electoral threshold of 10%. This means any political parties that are under 10% of the votes can't even enter the assembly. This is the very reason why United Sordland Party holds 52% of the seats in the assembly today. Also the reason why the largest ethnic minority of Sordland is non-existent in Swedish politics. The last elections have shown that the pro-Bludish WPB, Waste Paper Basket, had an enormous voter base of just above 9%. It still failed to meet the 10% threshold and couldn't enter politics. Similarly, the CPS has won around 8% of the general vote, but was eliminated. This means that millions of votes are not even represented in their current government. Moreover, this has benefited the USP most and gave them lawmaking power. The undemocratic threshold needs to be lowered down so that there is no true representation in the assembly. Oh, so there is true representation, and true representation of our voices. No one can call Sordland a democracy without a decrease or a constitutional proposal that does not include such change democratic. Right, let's check out what we have. Mona industrial output concerns. The mayor of Mona has reported that their industrial output numbers this year are 12% lower than last year. They are requesting additional support to improve the industrial capacity, including machinery and personnel, to combat the downward trend. With construction of several new factories in Mona, the mayor stated his belief that an economic upturn in the city is still possible if government investments succeed. According to current projections, Mona is set to lose an additional 2% of industrial output next year. However, recent data from the municipality suggests that an investment worth several billion of Sordland will stop the downward trend. Yes, well, we can't invest everywhere. We'll have to choose what we do. Prisoners riot, Antel Rock Prison. Yesterday, around 11 AM, the prison riot started in Ward C of the Antel Rock Prison, which was eventually suppressed. Ward C is generally used for keeping political prisoners, and the riot started when a warden was killed by a political prisoner. 4 guards and 21 prisoners died. 134 were hospitalised. That needs to be stopped. Well, I guess it was. H3 report from SSC. SC's project manager for H3 Highway has reported that the project has been progressing well, and they have already started laying down the foundations for the ground retaining walls, bridges and earthworks. Project supervisors from the government confirmed the report, saying that most of the preliminary work has already been done by the SSC. However, the government officials added that there were a couple of delays related to the transportation of construction material, but not included in the SSC's report. Transportation network issues, I see. Well, one more decision. Oh no, there's a report in Hull Sword, USP report on reforms. Many of the members of the USP, led by Albin Clavin and the reformist wing of the party, clarified their demands from the government in the party congress. The upcoming constitutional reform, Albin Clavin stated that without ministry reforms, they won't be able to stand behind the new reform package. Presidential visit to Nabel. Presidential state car rode to Nabel. I was travelling to the snow-covered city of Nabel in the Nagis region for the Rural Development Forum, organised by the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education. The mountainous city of Nabel had gritty tones to it. It's mostly regarded as one of the poorer cities in Sordland. Its people were hardy and wary. Even after the discovery of natural resources in the area, years of neglect by the central government were apparent on the buildings and the general infrastructure. Natural resources, namely gas and oil, were now under the control of Gasum, which elevated the corporation to a place of power. My task in this forum was mainly symbolic. Fake smiles and handshakes with oil barons, meeting with local politicians, but most importantly of all, to make sure that Nabel does not feel like it was forgotten by the government. The scenery so far, however, was a reflection of Nabel's neglect. Main roads of the city were not maintained well. There were many bumps and empty, discoloured spots in the asphalt. Navigating and swerving to avoid the inconvenience as our motorcade finally started nearing the city. As if my discomfort from the bumpy ride was apparent to him, Serge rolled down the partition window. We'll be arriving at Hotel West in a few minutes, sir. Thank you for letting me know. I'm not going to badmouth him, he's a good driver. Any time, it is my duty. After a moment, Serge started to smile under his moustache. How's life, Serge? I'm not going to say what's that smile for. It sounds like you shouldn't be smiling. Sir, I just want to say it's been great these last 2 months. As you know, my wife Susan recently gave birth to our son, sir. And now my daughter just started at a very good high school in Holsard. Good for you, Serge. That's great news, Serge. I'm happy for you. I could give him the fatherly advice of the top, but I'll just go with happiness. No need to rain on his parade. I appreciate it, sir, truly. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to afford a great private school if she scored less than the entrance exams. I shouldn't have made my insecurity get to me. Erica outsmarts me all the time, and I'm very proud to have a daughter like her. I also hope that Deanna will grow up to be possible. That means she must have taken the smart... Oh, no, that's insulting. Well, I mean, it's a joke, but no. No, definitely not the bottom. I also hope that Deanna will grow to be like her mother someday. I'm sure she will, sir. After all, she is the daughter of a lion and a lioness. My daughter looks up to the First Lady for inspiration. And it's not just limited to my daughter, sir. She's an inspiration for almost all women in the country. But at the same time, it must be hard for the First Lady as well. All this attention adjusting to this new high-profile life. And a husband that has great responsibility. You're right, it's hard for her. I could say it's hard for us, and it is, but at the same time, we're not talking about me right now. It must be, sir. We sometimes forget the important people in life between all the responsibility and rush. You know, those we care for. I know what you're saying, Serge. Yes, Serge, I get it. Of course, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. There was a long silence. After several minutes, Serge attempted to break the silence. Have I told you, sir, we named my son George? The doctor said he is very healthy, and thankfully, so is my wife. That's good. I hope the hospital had a good service. Normally, we would have been treated in one of the suburban hospitals. But thanks to the special coverage with presidential staff, we were transferred to Emerald State Hospital. Emerald State is a great hospital. I do agree with number 3, but it might not be the time to say it because I'm not sure, with the economy as it is, how far we can go. The equipment and the staff were exceptional. Serge sighed. I already started thinking about the university education, especially Erica. I want to send her to a good private school, but with the current state of the economy, it's going to be hard for us. We will fix the economy one way or another. Anyone can, that's you, Mr. President. The car hit a major pothole and bump, which lifted us up in our seats for a second. Are you fine? Yes, sir. I hope the car is too. The motorcade began approaching the hotel. The Hotel West was supposedly the best hotel in Nabel. The large 25-story main building was undoubtedly one of the taller and more exceptional buildings. It towered over the nearby slums and had been a target for protest when it was first built. A crowd was gathered in front of the hotel, with the welcoming committee at its centre. As we approached the red-carpeted entrance, I could see the mayor of Nabel up aids. Serge got out of the car and opened the door. He bowed his head respectfully and gestured toward the entrance. Thank you, Serge. Have a good day, Mr. President. As soon as I left the vehicle, the fresh air of Nabel filled my lungs. Almost immediately, everyone present in the crowd flocked over to me with an excessive delay of courtesy, smiles, and handshakes while I donned the mask of a politician. A mask that I was very used to now. And we will follow up with the meeting itself next time. Before we end, though, let's just check out a couple of reports here. Young Sword suspected of terror attack. Approximately 1646 on Monday, a terror attack occurred in the Vesord city centre during a rally by the left-wing CPS. The attacker suspected to be working with Young Swords or another organisation connected to them opened fire with an automatic rifle on the protesting civilians. 17 people were killed, including the attacker, who shot himself afterwards. Witnesses testified that the rifle was hidden behind a newsstand. Our local police are now very wary of this tactic, and all newsstands will be inspected by police before and during crowded rallies. And Holsword. French Richter, leader of the JP, recently outlined their demands for the reform package. He declared that without the implementation of term limits and limited decrees, it would be very difficult for him and his party to stand behind the reform package. Alright. And that's where we'll leave it for today. I see the highway is making decent progress. For now, I've been Yorkie the Talespinner, this has been Suzerain, and you have been a fine audience. If you wish to help the channel grow, there is a like, subscribe and comment. All very helpful. Fare thee well.